What's up? Sunday GUNDAY, motherfucker. What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things, and yes, this is really happening. I've gotten a lot of comments recently saying, dude, how about you review something that I can actually afford? And I get it. I've done a lot of expensive builds and custom gun videos recently, so today I took the money that could go into making a gun awesome and put the money on the gun instead. This is the infamous C9 from HiPoint Firearms, or as I like to call it, the C-Note HiPoint. Unfortunately, they're not blue C-Notes, but hey, old money's still money, right? Blue C-Note! Thank you, 2 Chainz. This chunky little thing may look like a double stack, but it's actually a single stack 9mm with an 8-round mag and 1 in the pipe. It has a 3.5-inch barrel, an overall length of 6.75 inches, and comes in at 29 ounces or just under 2 pounds. While this gun looks and feels like it's all slide, the little bit of frame that you have to hold on to is made out of a high-impact polymer. The entire package is obnoxiously, elegantly hydro-dipped in all of that extra cash you save, since the gun comes in at just around the $200 mark. Now, I'm definitely going to be having some fun with this review, but I also need to hit on some serious notes like the safety features and purpose of this gun. They include a quick thumb on-off safety as well as a magazine disconnect safety, which some may view as a nuisance, but it is functional. And while this gun looks the way it does, it is still a very serious form of protection for those out there who maybe can't afford a better firearm, or for those who simply have no taste. Or great taste, I mean, who am I to judge? My expectations of this gun are about as low as the price point, so as long as I pull the trigger and it goes bang every time and I can hit some of my TA targets out there, I might be chalking this up as a win. So let's head out there, make it rain a little bit, and then I'll come back and give you guys my first mag impression. Since these are only 8-round mags, let's do one more. Alright guys, back for my first mag impression of the C-Note HiPoint. I don't want to get too nitpicky with this because there's obviously a lot of things that I could kind of rip on. The main thing I want to do is keep in mind the price point and the purpose of this gun. So I'll start off by saying it fired all 16 shots that I put through this gun. It wasn't as accurate as I would like it to be, however, this rear sight is adjustable. Here you can sort of get an idea of the sight picture. They're just plastic sights. The front is painted some type of yellow or green, and then the rear sights are red. As you can see, when I push on this rear sight, it moves up and down, and I was shooting pretty low there. I was only at about 15 or 20 yards, so I think I might do a little bit of a tweaking to that rear sight to see if I can bring it up a little bit more on target. Another thing are the ergonomics. This gun is not the easiest thing to hold on to. Like I said, this thing looks and feels like it's all slide because it really is a massive slide on top. You really have to wedge your hand up in there in the beaver tail, and then with your support hand, you don't really have a place to put it. So I was just kind of riding it on the side of the slide here. There's no front serration, so I wasn't worried about it catching onto my skin or anything. But it does have rear serrations here, and if you're coming over the top, it's a huge piece of steel to grab onto. I shouldn't say steel, it's probably not steel, it's some kind of metal. But still, even without those serrations, I don't think it would be a problem to grab onto this slide just because it is so massive. There's a couple hot points on here as well. Because the grip is short, my pinky was kind of digging into this little grip extension. And then the corners around the tech string of the front of the grip, they're not square, but they're definitely not as rounded as I would like. Other than that though, I can reach the thumb safety with no problem. Magazine release, same thing as well. The main thing here is that when I pulled the trigger, it went bang. So as of now, I'm going to say that it's doing pretty good. The gun does feel a little bit top heavy, so I will probably be death gripping this thing until the end. I have a feeling that if you put this in a new shooter's hand, they're gonna have a hard time managing the recoil. And because there isn't a whole lot of room to put your hands, this is probably gonna end up being limp-wristed and then get stuck when trying to put another round into the chamber. Since this is shooting a little low, I am going to try to adjust this rear sight. I'm basically hoping I just don't break this screw off. I'm not exactly sure how far I should go here, but hopefully that was a simple fix. Here is one of my targets. I was aiming pretty much center mass that entire time, and then once I realized I was hitting down here, I aimed a little bit more towards the head, and then I got a shot right towards the center. Let's hope that adjustment fixes things. I have obviously not given my opinion on the trigger yet. I will save that until the end. Let's just see how many more rounds I can put down before I get sick of it. This thing can't hit anything as it is, but let's see what it can do at a distance. Hey, we got one. Two. Those bullets are flying all over the place. Alright guys, back for my final thoughts on the HiPoint C9 or the C-Note HiPoint. I had to stop after about 100 rounds because this thing is just uncomfortable to shoot. You really have to wedge your hand up into that beaver tail, and then with all of this slide mass rocking back and forth, it has a pretty high bore axis, so all of that weight is rocking right down onto the back of your thumb. It's not necessarily slide bite because the slide is definitely clearing my hand, it wasn't grabbing onto my skin, but that repeated punching motion of the gun coming back down into your bone there really is not that comfortable. I was also struggling with accuracy for a little bit in the beginning there. After I adjusted the rear sights, it did seem to bring up my grouping and it was shooting a little bit better, but as I started to shoot faster, transitioning between targets and kind of walking around, accuracy definitely dropped off. I think that is largely due to the ergonomics of this gun. A lot of advice that first-time shooters get when they're going out to purchase their first firearm is pick up a bunch of different firearms, and whichever one feels best in your hand, you should definitely consider that as one of your best picks. If the ergonomics are good and it fits in your hand, the gun is balanced well, and you can get a nice point of aim, something that feels natural just as an extension of your arm, 9 times out of 10 you're going to shoot that better than something that you have to kind of compromise for. Holding onto this thing is basically like holding onto an oddly shaped brick. It's top heavy, there are hot points everywhere, and then the trigger is also, We'll talk about the trigger in a second, but with all of those factors combined, it doesn't make for the most accurate package. And don't think of just ragging on this thing. Keep in mind that this gun is only about $200 and I did not have a single malfunction while I was out there. One other weird thing that I thought might cause a malfunction was this magazine. As you load this thing up, it seems fine with the first couple of rounds. But then once you get to about 5, 6, 7, the bullets start to dip down like this a little bit. You really want the nose of this round to be sitting up here flush with the top of the magazine. So I thought because of that bullet dive, it might have some problems chambering a second round. However, that actually was not the case. Like I said in the beginning, I believe limp wristing this thing would definitely cause it to malfunction. There were a couple times there where I didn't have the best grip because I was shooting differently, you know? And then every once in a while when I would fire off a round and I did not have the best grip, it felt like the slide was just kind of cycling a little bit slower than it should be. There was 1 or 2 times there where I would put the first round in the chamber, and if I didn't do that with authority, it would sit a little bit out of battery, but a simple tap would just take care of that. And then there's the trigger. I guess we have to talk about this thing now. I mean, just look at it. This gun is obviously not a toy, but that trigger reminds me of something that you would see on like a Nerf gun or a Cap gun. It's just super plasticky, which obviously cuts down on the cost, and it does not feel good at all. I will try to show the take up here, but to be honest, it's so inconsistent that it might not be easy to do this. It looks and sounds exactly how it feels. So I'll try to do this slowly, pull back until you get to a wall. Right there, it just jumps straight back to it because it's like grinding plastic on the inside. And now I believe there might be a millimeter or 2 until I get back to the actual wall. All right, that was a break. I'll try to find the reset by holding in the trigger, releasing the magazine for that disconnect safety, let the trigger out. The trigger is almost all the way out there. I'll actually take my finger off of it. Yeah, it's almost all the way back out. I'll try to pull it slow and smooth back to the wall, but as you can see, it just kind of jumps right there. You're at the wall again for a break. I think the best way to shoot a trigger like this, and this is really not good advice, but I would say just to treat it almost like a single stage trigger. Maybe it's just this gun, maybe not, but I found myself being more accurate if I just pulled the trigger all the way through to the wall and didn't try to feel it out. Typically when you're shooting for accuracy, especially at long distances, you want to pull the trigger slowly until you feel that wall. And right there, I couldn't even get to the wall without it breaking. So basically, I would just put my sights out on target, put my finger on the trigger, and then just pull straight through. There's a whole lot more to be desired out of a trigger, but again, at the same time, is there really at a $200 price point? If you can really not afford to spend an extra $100 or $2 to get a better firearm, then yeah, I guess this gun would be okay. Every time I pulled the trigger, it went bang, it locked back after every empty magazine. And it did take a while to get used to the bad ergonomics and terrible trigger on this thing, but after a while, I was getting shots on steel. They advertise that these are +P rated too, which means you could carry some self-defense loads in here. I personally would not like to trust my life with a gun like this. However, in the event that you have nothing else, this thing ran and I believe that it would do the job. So I guess that's all I had to say on the C-Note HiPoint. I now have a baseline of one of the cheapest guns on the market, and from here on out, this thing is going to be a safe queen because look at it. Looks pretty good. If you guys have any comments or questions, feel free to leave those in the comments down below. I will typically reply to comments within the first hour or 2 after a video is posted. So if you have a pressing question that you want to ask me, turn on notifications. That way you get notified every time a video goes live. If you're new to this channel, consider clicking subscribe because I make new videos every week, and that's going to be all for today. So as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.